Good evening. Thank you so much for that warm introduction, and it's really a pleasure to be here in Greenville. What a fantastic turnout, and to have the opportunity to talk with all of you today, as well as to see what's happening at Bon Secours and the hospital that the sisters started so long ago. What an honor for me, and I've learned so much. Before I start, I have a few little things I'm going to ask you to write down if you want to. This talk is really about how to help you heal, whether you've had cancer or not. This is sort of a talk that I think everybody can bump up their level of health, and that's physical and spiritual and emotional. So if you want to participate, in your bags, there's a pen and just a blank piece of paper, and you can write a few things down. I'll do it during the talk. Entering the kingdom of the sick. Bang, bang, you get that diagnosis. Illness is the night side of life, a more onerous citizenship. Everyone who is born holds dual citizenship, in the kingdom of the well and in the kingdom of the sick. Although we all prefer to use only the good passport, sooner or later, each of us is obliged, at least for a spell, to identify ourselves as citizens of that other place. So this is one of my patients who allows me to share her story. She got married. She's a PhD chemist who spent her entire career in women's cancers, got married, and was almost declared dead about a year later. And that's what her car looked like. And when the EMTs arrived, they thought, my goodness, you know, we just have to get the jaws of life and pull out this body. And when they pulled her out, she started breathing, and they thought, my goodness, how did this woman survive? She's alive. Every serious illness is the beginning of both a personal and a family crisis. My family's began 8 years ago. And I remember, I grew up in California, and my whole family's still in California, and I live in Massachusetts. I'm at Harvard Medical School in Massachusetts, and when I was diagnosed, I had to tell my mother, who was in California. So what I did is I told my brother and my sister to be there with my mom when I told her, and we arranged the time that I would call. And I called my mom, and I started out with saying, you know, Mom, a lot of people survive cancer these days. The treatments are really great. And my mom had no idea what I was talking about, and she said to me, Julie, I have no idea what you're trying to tell me or what you're saying, but your brother's really upset right now, and I need to go help him. And hung up. That is a true story. My brother, you know, I can just imagine him sitting there and just being so devastated that he just really, you know, needed help and support. And he certainly did not mean for my mom to hang up on me. But it's the beginning of a personal and a family crisis. Everyone is touched. There was a major report that was released in 2005 called From Cancer Patient to Cancer Survivor Lost in Transition. A lot of smart people thinking about healthcare got together and said, you know what? We really need to do more for survivors. We're not doing enough to help cancer survivors. That survivors are patients who become sort of lost in transition, and they're not followed up well, they don't have the right information, they're kind of dropped off at the end of treatment, and we have to really do more. There were 10 key recommendations. One of those was that survivorship has to be a distinct phase of care. We can't say anymore that your last radiation treatment or your last chemotherapy treatment, you're done and go home and figure this out on your own. We have to actually have survivorship services. Whether you live with cancer as a chronic condition, you're cured or you're in remission, still survivorship is a distinct phase of cancer care. The second thing is that every survivor needs a care plan. So when you're done with your acute treatment, whatever that is, that you need some sort of plan. What are you supposed to do now to document the care that you've had and the care that you will need, perhaps? The elements of a survivor care plan are here in this puzzle, and the missing piece is often cancer rehabilitation. It's that piece when you're so sick sicker than you've ever been, which is how I felt when I was diagnosed with cancer and went through treatment. I felt terrific going in. I was in my 30s. I felt great. I was strong and healthy. I had 3 little kids at home, and my doctors told me that I had cancer. And by the way, let me tell you a little thing I learned about stage. It took 2 years for them to diagnose my cancer. I had 3 different workups. The first 2 were negative. And when I had the 3rd one, my doctor came in with tears in her eyes and she said, "Julie, you're right. You have cancer." I didn't want to be right. I wanted to be the hypochondriac that everybody thought I was. But there I had cancer. Do you think I was diagnosed at the earliest possible stage? I wasn't. And I couldn't even say that a few years ago. I couldn't even tell you that story because it was so painful to me to share that story or just even say that. And now what I know about stage, and one of my very good friends just wrote an article in the New York Times that you can look up about being a 17-year metastatic breast cancer survivor. 17-year stage 4 breast cancer survivor, Kathy Russell Rich. Look it up in the New York Times, good friend of mine. What I know about stage is that almost no one is diagnosed at the earliest possible stage. Very few people. That almost every cancer survivor lives with regrets and wishes they had been diagnosed sooner. And yet, here we all are, not diagnosed at the earliest possible stage, and here we all are. So the next time someone asks you what stage you are or talks to you about that, or you're thinking about it yourself, consider not answering that question. I never answer that question. I won't tell you what stage I was. I never answer that question. All you need to know is that I'm here now, sharing this story with you. So the missing piece, going back to my talk here that I'm supposed to stick to, is cancer rehabilitation is often missing, and Bon Secours, Lori McKittrick and her colleagues realized that and said, we have to put this into the survivorship care puzzle. Just like every other serious illness and injury, they get rehabilitation. Can you imagine someone having a stroke and having the doctor say, well, go home and figure it out? Can you imagine being in that terrible car accident that my patient was in and saying, go home and figure it out? Every serious illness and injury, people get rehabilitation. Even minor injuries. I treat a lot of sports medicine too, and I treat ankle sprains, and people get rehabilitation medicine. It's true. So cancer rehabilitation, a very important part, often missing, now available at Bon Secours, STAR program. Ask your doctor, ask your nurse practitioner, ask them about it. It's available. I felt after I had chemotherapy and had all that treatment that I had been in that horrible car accident, and I wrote After Cancer Treatment, Heal Faster, Better, Stronger, and I started talking about the fact that we cannot drop cancer survivors off and let them just try to figure it out themselves. That's not appropriate care. That is not research-based, evidence-based care. And by the way, your health insurance pays for rehabilitation. Did you know that? Your health insurance covers it. So I would go around the country and I was talking about this, and I talked to this one group, and this woman came up to me afterwards and she said, I made myself a pink cap and gown when I had my last chemotherapy visit and my infusion, and I graduated. I'm done. But I still don't feel very good, and it's been about a year. And I went and I talked to my oncologist, and he said, you need to accept a new normal. And I went to my nurse practitioner and my social worker, and they said that you need to accept a new normal, but I don't want to accept a new normal. I want to feel better. And I said, you shouldn't have to accept a new normal, at least not before you have rehabilitation medicine, at least not before you've healed optimally. My work is all about healing optimally. Doesn't mean you're cured of cancer necessarily. It just means healing to the best of your body's ability, emotionally, spiritually, physically. So this is a major focus of my work. Bringing oncology professionals and rehabilitation professionals together and having them focus on cancer rehabilitation and how they can help survivors heal optimally. I've written about this a lot. I wrote a blog on Livestrong, and people respond so much. They're like, I want this treatment. I didn't even know it was available. Why don't we know more about it? Well, please spread the word. I always call it the gospel of cancer rehab. Please spread the gospel of cancer rehab. Proselytize. Tell people that it's available, and it's available here at Bon Secours. They have a terrific program. What do the studies show? The research shows that cancer rehabilitation really helps survivors function at a higher level. And in fact, the American College of Surgeons Commission on Cancer that accredits many of the hospitals, more than 70% of the hospitals that deliver cancer care, insist for accreditation purposes that cancer rehabilitation be one of the key features of the program, of the survivorship care. So Centra in Lynchburg, Virginia, is one of the first hospitals that was STAR program certified, and lots of other hospitals have become STAR program certified, including Johns Hopkins, which is a terrific hospital. Here are some of them just to sort of show you that this is, been adopted throughout the country. And Bon Secours is now STAR program certified, the only hospital in South Carolina to be STAR program certified. Congratulations to Bon Secours. Thank you, thank you, thank you for doing this. And I'll tell you, they had, not only did they do the STAR program, they put 50 clinicians through the training. It's pretty rigorous training. 50 clinicians to make sure that everyone knew what was going on and that everyone was trained and up to speed. They really dedicated a lot of resources to make sure that survivors in South Carolina have the best possible care. So let's talk about moving towards healing. You know, I sort of gave you a framework for what's happening in survivorship and so on and what's happening at Bon Secours, but I want to leave you with some thoughts about your own healing, regardless of whether you've had cancer or not, and just think about your own health. I have a new book that's coming out. It's called You Can Heal Yourself, and it's coming out from St. Martin's in January. And you know, a lot of my work is really about empowering individuals to help themselves heal. It doesn't mean that you don't need to rely on your doctors and your nurses and all kinds of other people. It means what can you do to help bump yourself to a higher level of health no matter what you're facing. It doesn't promise a cure. It's about optimal healing no matter where you are. So I gave this talk, and it was a talk that they asked me to give with a gospel singer. And she did the spiritual part, and she sang the gospel piece of it, and I did the physical and emotional piece of it. And I need my gospel singer here on stage with me, but she was fantastic. This beautiful, beautiful, beautiful African-American woman who had been on the streets, addicted to crack cocaine, just terrible, terrible life, a teen pregnancy, all these terrible things. And then she became a singer and was a backup singer for Bette Midler and then a backup singer for Rod Stewart. And when she turned 50, and I'm telling you, this woman was drop dead gorgeous. When she turned 50, Rod Stewart said, "You're too old. You need to stop singing backup for me because you're just too old. You just don't have the looks anymore. We don't want someone who's 50 to be singing backup." So she turned her that was a very big disappointment. She turned her life towards really ministering to people and helping them heal, and she did the spiritual part. So I don't have her here with me today, but I want to do the physical and the emotional pieces of this for you. So let's move to the higher level and evolve. Accomplishing important goals. In rehab medicine, we love goals. We have short-term goals and long-term goals. We talk about goals all the time. We make lists. We love this kind of stuff. So think about your own goals. Write this down or just think about it if you want. 2 goals that you have that will move you to a higher level of physical or emotional health that you can accomplish, that you can own. two goals that you have. What would you like to do that you can't do now, or ways that you think that your health could be better? Just take a minute and write those down, or think about them in your mind. As you think about your goals, you want to develop a plan. How are you going to accomplish those goals? When you think about your goals, you're thinking, all right, these things are really important to me. So what is my plan for accomplishing these things that I think are so important to me? There was a book that was written more than 100 years ago called How to Live on 24 Hours a Day. Arnold Bennett wrote it. And he said, the time was the great equalizer. It doesn't matter how rich or poor you are. It doesn't matter what your faith is. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter your ethnic background. You all get 24 hours. How are you going to live on 24 hours a day? And one of the things that I do with my patients, and you're gonna see it if you go through the STAR program at Bon Secours, they have a STAR Survivor guidebook, and in it you log your activities for 3 days. And you try to match your activities with your most important goals. So you say, these are the things that are most important to me. Are the activities, is my to-do list matching up with my goal list? Often there's a big disconnect. We say, these are the things that are most important to me, and then over here are totally different things that we're doing every day. So you've got to make that work together. If you say, these are the things that are most important to me, then your to-do list has to reflect that. So write down or think about 2 things that you did last week to help you accomplish those goals that you said were so important to you. What are 2 things you did last week? Did you do 2 things last week to help yourself achieve those goals? Saying yes to all of your old responsibilities means that you have to say no to your most important goals. And when you're trying to heal, and when you're trying to bump up your health, physically and emotionally, you have to start saying yes to yourself. It's really important. You can't just say yes to everyone else and then ignore what you need to do to sort of bump your health up. Health, healing, and nurture. Exercise is medicine. We've been hearing so much about exercise as medicine. Does anybody know how many steps a day average healthy Americans are supposed to take? What's the goal? Shout it out. 10,000. Excellent. Good, good, good. 10,000 steps a day. One of the best things you can do is get a pedometer. They'll use this in the STAR program, and just start tracking how many steps a day you're taking right now. My patients love this because I don't tell them to exercise. What I tell them is, here's the goal of 10,000 steps a day for active, healthy people. Here's a pedometer. Put it on, just see where you're at. And you know what they do? They decide themselves that they want to exercise. They want to increase their number of steps because they realize, here's the goal and here's what I'm doing. Fatigue. How many people in this room are not tired? Is there anyone in this room that is not tired, that feels totally refreshed? We always have one. And no matter how big the crowd is, there's always one. Yes, we have someone in back who is not tired. Excellent. Almost everyone is really tired. We go around tired. But you know what? If you're too tired, you can go to prison for it. Did you know that? And here's how. One day I was teaching a course on Cape Cod, and I left the course. It was about 5 o'clock in the evening. Nice day, beautiful weather, roads were clear, driving along, and on the other side of the road, 495, I saw this horrible accident, backed up for miles and miles and miles. Gave me the chills. You know, it's one of those things I'll never forget. The next day, one of my colleagues, a doctor, called me and she said, Julie, I crossed the center line. I hit a whole family head on. Everyone was injured. We were all medevaced out. Kids, parents. She was injured. About a week later, she called me and she said, Julie, she said, I need a letter from you that says I didn't stay up all night the night before because I'm being prosecuted by the state of Massachusetts under the drowsy driving laws. The drowsy driving laws go state by state, and they're based on the sleep research that says if you miss one night's sleep, it's worse than if you're drunk driving, that your coordination and your reflexes and so on. So what do I tell doctors and nurse practitioners and nurses in oncology care? I say, when your patients tell you they're tired, you need to pay attention, because that is their way of saying, I am not functioning well. I do not feel good. I cannot have a good life if I'm tired. It is really hard to have a good life if you're really, really, really tired. Now, everyone's tired a little bit. No doubt. Everyone's tired a little bit. But when you're tired from cancer and its treatments, when you're anxious and you're worried and you're not sleeping well at night, you cannot feel good. You cannot heal well. So what my advice to you is to understand what sleep does for you and have a specific conversation with your doctor or your nurse practitioner about your fatigue, and specifically tell your doctor about what's wrong with your sleep, if anything. Are you getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom? Do you have hot flashes? Are you in pain? Are you worried? Are you having trouble falling asleep, waking up, and so on? Talk to your doctor. Another reason why people get tired too, and I just had this problem with my little girl today. I called home and my little girl said, Mommy, I don't feel very good. And I said, well, Anna, what did you have for lunch? And she said, well, her brother took her out. Her brother's 19, and he took her out for pizza. So I got on the phone with my other daughter, my 15-year-old, and I said, Anna doesn't feel well. You need to make her something to eat. She's really not feeling well. And my daughter said, well, she didn't eat her lunch. We went out, but she didn't eat. If you don't eat well, you don't feel very good. You're very tired. We'll talk about that more, but fatigue is often very closely related to diet. So think about that. Sleep, diet, exercise. So what should you be doing? Well, nutritious food's important. What used to work for you, let's say you skip breakfast and use coffee as a pick-me-up, it doesn't work so well when you need to heal. It just doesn't work as well. So really be thinking about that diet, really be thinking about how you don't want to cheat on having a good diet, which doesn't mean you can't have dessert or whatever it is, and I don't want you to spend your whole life planning your diet. Just want you to think about nutritious food. How colorful is your plate? Are you skipping meals? I usually say 3 small meals and 2 good snacks during the day. Keep your energy level up. Really focus on healing. Make that plate colorful with fruits and vegetables. Nurturing ourselves. We're not very good at nurturing ourselves, and Ali Domar is a colleague of mine at Harvard who studied this a lot, and in particular, women tend to be really bad at nurturing themselves, great at nurturing other people. And you know where we learned it? From our mothers. Yep. And I often ask people, how many of you were raised by martyrs? And like every woman in the audience raises her hand and says, yeah, my mom was so self-sacrificing. Absolutely. And we do it for our own kids all the time. But when you need to heal, you've got to nurture yourself a little bit so that you can better nurture others. It's a real change of the way that we think. Men do this too. Men don't nurture themselves as well as they could either. And one of my, I tell this story about when I was trying to heal from cancer and really, focusing a lot on my exercise and everything else, which I still do. I would go out every day and I would wear my pedometer and I would do my 10,000 steps and so on. And one day my daughter who was younger then, she comes running out the door and she says, Mommy, 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 please play dolls with me. Please, please, please play dolls with me. And I said, no, Anna, I'm going on my walk. And I said, Daddy's in the house and he'll play with you and your brother and your sister. And they all play with her. They love her. They're so good to her. No, Mommy, only you. I just need you to please, please, please play dolls with me. And I said, no, Anna. I said, I'm going for my walk. And I turned my back and I walked away from her and she's crying in our driveway. And what's going through my head? Oh my gosh, I'm such a bad mother. What are my neighbors thinking? Right? And you know what I said to myself? I said, I hope that I'm teaching her that when she's a mom and she has all these responsibilities, that she takes the time to nurture herself because she needs that strength to be able to nurture everyone else. So I hope I've taught my kids that they need time to nurture themselves so that they can better nurture other people. It's a hard lesson to learn. I'm still not very good at it, and I bet a lot of you aren't either. Love and connections, do they help us heal? What do you think? One of my favorite things to do is just put up research study after research study about how skin wounds and all these different research studies show that people physically heal better with emotional support and love and connections. There's some really fantastic research about that. Really, really interesting research. And I'm not going to go too far into research today. I'm going to ask you to believe me that research is out there. And I want to ask a little bit more about support and love and connections and what we call social capital. Social capital, your wealth in human connections, your wealth in connections. Have you ever thought about social capital? We know what capital is. Capital's wealth, right? So what's social capital? Your wealth in human connections, your wealth in connections. Those of you that are sitting here today have a lot of social capital or you would not be here today. You are the kind of people that go out and want to make connections, want information, want to connect with people. You're very wealthy in social capital. Everyone can always be wealthier. We cannot never have too much social capital, but social capital is really, really, really important. It helps you heal. It helps you have great health. And when I talk about it, I want to just ask you if you know what's the most popular sport in America? What do you think? Football. Baseball. Yeah? Guess what? You're wrong. It's bowling. It's bowling. Yeah, it is. You don't believe me? Read the book. All right. So this professor at Harvard wrote this book, and he wrote it all about social capital. And bowling alone is a metaphor for what's happening in the United States. And you know what's happening? The number of leagues has dramatically decreased, the number of bowling leagues, while the number of bowlers has dramatically increased. Bowling is an incredibly popular thing to do, but we do it alone. Bowling alone. So what do we have to do? We have to reach out. Do you know the people at your table? Did you say hi to them? Did you introduce yourself to them? Please don't leave tonight without saying hi to every person at your table and knowing their name, where they came from, and just reaching out to them just a little bit. Ned Hallowell has written a lot of books. He wrote Driven to Distraction, Driven from Distraction. A lot of people know his work from that. He also wrote a book called Connect and talked about the 12 points of connection. They're your family of origin, your immediate family, your friends and community, your work, your mission, your activity, beauty, which is art and culture and all of those things, the past, nature and special places, pets and other animals, ideas and information. You're here tonight. You're getting so much. You're making connections with people. You're getting ideas and information. A lot of social capital here tonight. A lot of social capital here tonight. Institutions and organizations, Bon Secours, St. Francis, different institutions. Whatever's beyond knowledge, that's spirituality. And yourself, connecting to yourself. There's this boy in my neighborhood. There's been actually a lot of studies on social capital and pets. And there's this boy in my neighborhood, and he is most known for sitting on his roof and smoking cigarettes. And one day, his family got a dog. And all of a sudden, this boy came down from his roof, and started walking the dog around the neighborhood. And all of the neighbors started saying hi. Hey, look at that cute dog, and hey, it's good to see you out. And he got so much positive reinforcement. And I told my kids think it's funny because I talk about social capital at home. I know it's awful to have a mother who sits there and talks about social capital and those kinds of things. And I have to tell my kids to build their social capital, and they're like, yeah, Ma, we know, build social capital. So I said, that is social capital in action. Kid comes down from the roof, stops smoking, walks his dog, starts connecting with the animal and with people around him. So what are ways that you can increase your social capital? Think about that. What are ways that you can, because we all can increase our social capital more. What are ways that you can? Setbacks. I really hate setbacks. Ugh, they're awful. In healing, people think something happens and you get better, done, and that's it. No one wants any setbacks. But most people have them. And one of the things that I think is really important to understand is that setbacks are a normal part of the healing process. We expect them, we anticipate them, we have to prepare for them. There's two different kinds. There's physical and emotional. The physical or the emotional ones have to do with ambushes, what I called emotional ambushes. I wrote about this. I've written a lot about this. A classic example is Elizabeth Edwards. When she was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, it made the news. When she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer and her cancer progressed, one oncologist said it was like a bomb went off in her office. All these women were calling in and saying, oh my gosh, did you hear the news about Elizabeth Edwards? I want to come in for a metastatic workup. I'm so worried. This couple came up to me after a talk, and the woman said to me, she said, I finished breast cancer treatment like 6 months ago, and I was doing great. I feel really good. I was doing great, but then I heard about Elizabeth Edwards. I said, well, do you know Elizabeth Edwards? No. She's not your sister, your aunt, you don't have any connection to her. No, but I heard about her, and it's a really sad story. I said, well, that's an emotional ambush. You can't own what's happening to Elizabeth Edwards. It's not yours to own. Does anyone in this room not have enough stress? Is there anybody that needs to own someone else's stress? You can't. You can't. You cannot be ambushed. You can feel bad for someone else, but unless you have had a specific talk with your doctor about your health, you cannot own someone else's story. It happens all the time. Someone will come up to you and say, did you hear about so-and-so? Or you'll hear about a tsunami, or you'll hear about an earthquake, or whatever it is, and all of a sudden, the way an emotional ambush happens, it happens to every single person. It's happened to everyone in this room. You're going along in your usual state of health, you hear something, it's not really related to you, and your mood plummets. And you start feeling a lot of stress about it, and you start thinking about it, and you start worrying about it, and you've just been ambushed. Best way to deal with it, recognize it, start pushing it away. Recognize it, push it away. Somebody wants to tell you a sad story, stop them in the middle of it. Turn off the news, whatever, but push it away. If it happens to you, and it will, push it away. I wrote about this in Newsweek, and all these people wrote in and said, you just put a term, a phrase to what I've experienced. I had all these people saying, that's happened to me. Thank you for writing about this. My mom, who loves to follow my work, she said, Julie, that article you wrote in Newsweek? And I said, yeah, Ma. She goes, well, I read it. I said, oh, that's great, Ma. And she said, well, Tim Russert? And I said, yeah, Mama, I know Tim Russert. Well, he died. I said, yeah, Ma, I know he died. Well, he had a heart attack. I said, yep, I know, Mom. It was all over the news. He had a heart attack. Well, he had diabetes, and I have diabetes. And ever since he died, I've been so worried about my heart. But my doctor says my heart's fine. So I realized I was emotionally ambushed. I said, you got it, Mom. You were ambushed. You don't know Tim Russert. You don't have his heart. It's not about you. You cannot own that story. You can feel bad for his family. That is not your stress. Physical setbacks are a little harder sometimes to overcome, but they often can be overcome. One of my friends is a motorcycle cop, had a heart procedure, got on his bike, rode his bike, and the vibrations and stuff bled into his arm, all kinds of bruising. went to his doctor and he said, oh my God, look what happened to me. This is horrible. His doctor said, don't worry about it. Just stay off the motorcycle. And he came over to my house that night and he said, my doctor, he doesn't understand. He's not listening to me. I said, no, I actually think your doctor does understand. He probably didn't do as good a job explaining to you what he's thinking about. But what he's saying is, I've seen this before. It's a setback. I can deal with it. Here's my advice. Do this, and we'll work this out. And after he left, he felt so much better. As physicians, we often don't take enough time to talk patients through the setbacks. But there are so many good treatments now for all kinds of setbacks. So if you have a setback, please keep that in mind. We are incredibly resilient. We are so much more resilient than we give ourselves credit for. There was a study that was done looking at 3 different groups of people. The first group had been in a serious car accident the year before. Another group were just average people, average Janes and Joes, and the third group were people that won the lottery. And they looked at how happy these 3 different groups were. Happiest people, won the lottery. Next happiest, average Janes and Joes. Least happy were the people that had been in a serious car accident and had paralysis. But you know what was so interesting about this study? There weren't big differences. People that were in a really serious car accident and had serious health problems after it weren't that much more upset or less happy than the people that had won the lottery. Which tells you what? That it's no fun to be diagnosed with cancer, but that you're very resilient. You're very resilient. You can still have a good life and be a cancer survivor. You're very resilient. These are my kids. They wrote 2 books for the American Cancer Society called Our Mom is Getting Better and Our Dad is Getting Better. One of the things that I never think cancer is a gift. That's just my own personal thing. I do not believe cancer is a gift. I think it's an opportunity to sort of think about things and perhaps change the way you're doing things, but I don't think it's a gift. I think the gift is me showing my kids that I could be resilient. That's the gift I gave them, is that I could get up every day and wear my resilience and say, you know what, I'm going to still laugh with you, I'm going to smile with you, I'm going to hug you, I'm going to be your mom, I'm going to do the very best that I can, even though I was diagnosed with cancer. Had a lot of bad days, wasn't really, the best mom in the world on the days when I had bad days, can't even claim to be the best mom in the world on my good days. But I tried, and I really got up, and every day I tried to be resilient and show my kids. And here they are with my mom. This is my patient, and she every year would run the Komen race. Remember the one that was in the accident? She'd run the Komen race, and now she walks it. First year she walked it, she came in last place. Next year she walked it, she came in last place. But she shaved 20 minutes off her time. You can't always go back to being the way that you were before, but you get up, put one foot in front of the other, just keep going. So write this down or just think about it if you want. One more goal that will help you to move to where you want to be. One more goal that it can be about social capital, it can be physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever it is. One more goal that you think will help you, that you can accomplish. And then one thing for each of the 3 goals that you have now that can help you to accomplish them. One thing that you can do this week that you think will help you accomplish those goals. What can you do this week that you can put on your to-do list to match your most important goals with the things that you're doing this week? A lot of people ask me what helped me get through cancer, and I would share information with them about my own story, and then I would think, my story is just one story. It's just my story. There's so many cancer survivors that have other stories. They might be men. They might be older than me, younger than me, without kids, with different kids, whatever it is, different careers. And one of the things that I wanted when I was diagnosed with cancer is I wanted hope and inspiration. There's a lot of bad news in cancer, and I was really tired of hearing bad news. I wanted some good news. I wanted hope and inspiration. So I worked with the American Cancer Society, and I interviewed more than 200 cancer survivors, and I said, what really made a difference to you? What really helped you? And they told me their stories, and I put them in this book, What Helped Get Me Through. And I love the stories. I love the perspectives. You can see people's senses of humor come out. The people that are funny wrote funny things. The people that are really serious wrote serious things. All the different senses, you know, the way, the personalities and all of that. I want to share just a few of them with you. One family, or one woman wrote in and said that she had asked people to put the dinners that they brought over in a basket or a cooler outside her porch. And I remember that was such good advice because I didn't do that. And every night people would bring over dinners. And you know what my kids would say? Oh, Mom, please, please, please don't talk to them very long. Please don't talk about cancer. Could you please just tell them to go away? Just drop off the food and run. Seriously, my kids were so, weeks and months. People were fantastic. They helped so much. And of course, I didn't feel like I could tell people, look, my kids are tired of hearing about cancer. Could you just drop the food and run? But what a great idea, huh? To put it there so you didn't have to answer those questions every single time. It was hard. It was tiring, even though these people were so wonderful to support me. Love that tip. One woman wrote in, she had pancreatic cancer, which had, a difficult prognosis. And she said, for every event I made it to, a wedding, a concert, whatever it was, I put a bead on my necklace. And all of a sudden I had this really long necklace. And I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, how did I get a really long necklace? Pretty amazing. I love the symbolism there. This one is great. And I wish every person in this room had somebody who was as kind as this man was to his wife. I have a really fantastic husband, and he could have said this. He said so many things that were wonderful, but I love this sentiment. Hello, beautiful. Thank you for fighting so hard so that we can all be together again today. What a great guy to say that every day, huh? A lot of men wrote in, and they said, I wasn't hugged or touched. I wish that someone had touched me, hugged me, been more affectionate. You know, guys, we have a hard time doing that. And I was talking about this. I was sharing this story at a group of cancer survivors that are mentors or peer counselors at Dana-Farber. And they're taught to counsel other people that are newly diagnosed. And I mentioned how many men wrote in. And normally after I give a talk, women come up to me. You know, the men might kind of come up and say, a word or two, but women come up and they're just like, oh, great talk, or, they'll just say something nice or give me a hug or whatever. Well, this time when I said that, I had all these men surround me and they wanted to tell me their stories about how they weren't touched, how they weren't hugged. We have to do a better job of hugging our men, of patting them on the back, of holding their arm, of getting them through this experience. We really have to, because we love our men, and they aren't as good at women at hugging and kissing and giving each other, that physical support, that touch that just matters so much. One cancer center director came up to me and she said, I'm kind of embarrassed because at our hospital what we do is we ring a bell and we say, okay, you're done. And, that's it. We drop our patients off. And I said, I love that symbolism. I love rituals. I love symbolism. But ringing the bell doesn't mean you're done. It means it's time to heal. It means it's time to heal. And there's a woman I work with on the STAR program, and she happens to have a business background, not a healthcare background. And she's heard me give this talk time and time again, and her significant other was recently diagnosed with prostate cancer. One of the best hospitals in the world he was treated at. And when he was done, they rang the bell. And she said to the nurse that was standing there, she said, well, what's next for him? Well, like, you know, he's ringing the bell, but what's next? And she said, no, that's it. Now he has to go home to heal. And she came back to me, she said, Julie, you were right. She goes, that's what happens in hospitals. They ring the bell and then that's it. She goes, I couldn't believe it. I lived it. And I said, you know what? We can't have cancer survivors living that. The bell ringing is a symbol that means it's time to heal. It's time to help you recover. You need to have resources in your hospitals, research that supports care for cancer survivors in the survivorship phase, and Bon Secours has really brought that to you. Please talk to them about the STAR program. Talk to them about how to heal faster, better, and stronger. As I gave grand rounds to a group of doctors, this oncologist came up to me afterwards and he said, you know that slide of that woman with the pink graduation cap and gown? I said, yeah. He goes, you need to define what commencement means for people. You need to tell them that the definition of commencement is to begin. It means to begin. Where's this? Anybody know? Yeah, Central Park. I go in California, give a talk, and everybody's like, I have no idea where that is. I go to New York and give a talk, and it's Central Park. They're all screaming. They love Central Park. So this woman was working late one night, and she went out for a run. And it was dark, and she was brutally raped and beaten and almost killed. And she said, I built a life until I was 28, was struck down, and so had to build another. 2 lives, and I'm proud of both. Of course, she had help healing, didn't she? She had rehabilitation, and she had help healing. She's a survivor. Thank you so much for your time and attention. God bless you.